this will wait. There we go. Live on all of our platforms, y'all. We're gonna wait for Instagram to get their live together, and then we'll go from there. Man, thank you for tuning in. Y'all, we're gonna be talking about turning your message into a movement. For those of you who are joining us live, let us know where you're tuning in from. And what's gonna be most helpful for you in terms of, interviewing one of my previous clients, Jennifer Watson, about her experience in my program, talking about the different things that she overcame as someone who was already speaking, as someone who's always been a high level performer, first in athletics, and then in her own private practice. I'm telling your whole story for you. And then as a speaker, an entrepreneur, and a coach, a person who's been coached by some amazing human beings and is connected to a lot of people in this world. And to talk about her journey of like still pushing her edge, still finding support, still choosing to dive deep. I don't know if y'all ever felt this way, but like sometimes when you do a lot of inner work, you can get tired of doing inner work. Like there's this thing that I personally wrestle with like thinking that like doing the inner work was going to get me to a point of completion. Like I'll do enough healing to where I'm done. And lo and behold, that I know that as soon as I would get one layer of healing, I'd find a new layer, or I'd find a new thing that was in the way of my next level, or I tried to push my growth and my potential, what I can reach. And then I find myself struggling with some of the same things that I thought that I overcome, but then they come up again when I hit my next growth edge. And I've watched you do that time and time and time again, Jennifer. And I think you're one of the most powerful people that I know when it comes to shifting your energy, when it comes to living with the level of health and wellness and vitality that produces your highest level of frequency, your greatest level of productivity, and your best performance. So I could just go on and on and on, but I wanted this to just be a really candid discussion around your experience as a speaker and also some encouragement, some practical tips to those that are looking to get their message out there to the world. So why don't we just go ahead and again, wherever you're tuning in from, let us know in the chat. Let us know what's the sticking point for you in getting your message out there to the world. Okay. And of course, don't be selfish with this message. Click that share button. If you find something that resonates or you hear something that like sounds good to you, like don't just keep it to yourself. Apply it into your life, but then also share it to your platform so other people can benefit from that. What up, Melissa? I see you tuning in from Atlanta. It's great to see you. I see you, Jim. I see you, Artin. All the other people tuning in from the other platforms, man, I'm sure we see you. And if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay. So Jennifer Watson, go ahead, let us into your story. Tell us a little bit about your journey of like where you've come from, and then we'll kind of get into a little bit of your experience with the program.
Well, first and foremost, everybody, it's a big deal when Daryl's saying about me, like things I've done in my life. Even a year ago, it felt triggering to me. So that tells you the work I've done, that all the successes Daryl knows that I've had, how much I still felt this lack of worth and this inability to actually go to the next level, and feeling I wasn't really in that space to like play the game, and especially in speaking. And even though I felt from a very young age, and Daryl knows this, I felt from a very young age that I was supposed to speak, there were a lot of things that came up during my life that deterred me from speaking, and people saying I shouldn't speak and all this stuff. And finally, it was probably a couple of years ago, and I've known Daryl for a really long time, where I felt literally God saying, you need to take all that you've learned from athletics, everything you've learned as a healer, everything you've learned as a business leader, and the ways that you've created this impact, and speak it, but also speak some of your pain that came from those areas of impact. And Daryl knows a lot about my stories. I think part of not wanting to speak and kind of holding back is allowing people to see my pain. That's been such a big thing for me, and being able to step in with Daryl, I would say was a humbling experience, because being a healer, as Daryl said, I've always done a lot of personal development, a lot of healing work, and I'm like, I'm good. Let's just get some speaking gigs and we're good to go. And when I stepped in, like, holy shizzy, this is what I'm going to say. This before I go further, everyone, Daryl is an amazing coach. And you know how I know he is? Because there's times I wanted to wring his neck, because he was what I didn't want to see But what's so great about Daryl, during all these parts that I was getting triggered from, all these parts in my life, he would just mirror, like, own this, move through this. And it wasn't really about healing as much as it was like, wow, being able to share that part of me that felt so vulnerable to the world in these areas of my life and these stories, and now integrating those pain stories into my speaking. This is where I get emotional. It's just healed so many parts of me that I wasn't even expecting was the place that we were going, but now it's allowed me to speak more from a space of integration of all of me, speak from a space of courage. Daryl knows this, of my pain, and moving it into connection with others. And the domino effect is continuing. I know we're going to go more into that, but for me, the phrase that really summarizes my time with Daryl has been coming home. That's kind of my word this year, or phrase this year, is coming home to all these parts of me, being able to step in it, show people this power of vulnerability, and combining it with all my wisdom and the science. Like, Daryl said so many times, you can show this part of you and still show the science, and still show the athlete, and still show the healer, all this stuff. And it took me a really, really long time to feel comfortable with that. Daryl knows that. I keep saying I was probably one of his hardest clients, but amen, because I have come to the other side in the success from this space that I didn't realize I needed to come from, is where all the speaking gigs, all the money, all the other things that we're talking about today have come from this space of actually knowing that I need to speak this pain that I didn't realize was still there. And Daryl, just in a very loving way, inviting me in to really stepping into that.
Oh man, this is beautiful, man. You're touching on a lot of stuff, man. And again, we're talking about what, almost like 2 years of a journey together. And by no means are we done, but what you just said is not something that happened overnight. What you just said is not something that happened at a flick of a wrist. What you said is something that happened when you sit in the pocket and continue to show up, push your edge, be willing to have those tough conversations, and be willing to bet on yourself and really go for it and try something new. So I want to definitely dig into some of the things around your message. There's certain things in your story that, while you may be healed from them, you're still not at a place where you're ready to talk about them.
Yeah.
Okay. So just because you're healed doesn't mean that you're ready to be vocal.
Yeah.
And so many people think that, oh, because I'm healed, that, oh my gosh, I'm ready to be vocal. And then they start to go talk about these things. And then it's like, uh-oh, there's so much more emotion there. Uh-oh, there's a throttle in here. Uh-oh, I thought I was healed, but now I see somebody in the audience that looks like the person who hurt me, and it triggers me that I don't want to give them the message to help them out of the pain, because they are probably like, and it's like you get in that wrestle. So man, there's so much that we can dive into from that aspect, and then also want to cover some of your financial wins, and more of those breakthroughs. But I want to give people who don't know who Jennifer Watson is, who doesn't know about your athletic background, who doesn't know about your PT background, give them a little bit of that backstory of like your journey and where you come from, so we can learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah, like Daryl said, I've been a high performer most of my life. That's kind of my middle name. I draw on high performers. I was a two-time All-American track athlete at Wisconsin-Madison. Go Badgers. Will always be a Badger. I learned a lot about what I thought, and I will say high performance was at that stage. I also learned a lot of what I thought leadership was at that stage, and how to balance, athletics and in academia life, and the challenges of not doing well in race and get back up. I learned a lot during that stage. Some things that we're going to go into, probably, that I will say were probably not healthy ways of performing, but I was a high performer no matter what. I was performing and really doing the grit and discipline and pushing through a lot of different things in emotional times that I had during college, including depression, anxiety, and I was still, quote, successful, but I was navigating, I was tanking in a lot of ways, mentally, emotionally, which a lot of people get shocked by with a lot of high performers, but it's quite common. And thus began my journey, actually, as I transitioned into physical therapy school, of looking at health differently, because I was physically, yeah, pretty fit, but mentally, emotionally, I was totally tanking, even behind the closed doors of success, of, quote, high performance. once I got into PT school, I started looking at what I call more like integrative and holistic ways of really looking at the mind, the body, the soul. Traditional medicine for me, and it doesn't mean it doesn't work for some, but for me just didn't move the needle for me. So I started healing myself, mind, body, soul through PT school. And I knew very soon after PT school, I would step into creating a practice that I felt really encompassed the whole person, that allowed them to create high performance or high vitality or high health, that looked at the mind, looked at the body, looked at the soul. And our practice did that, and it became very successful. I opened it in 2008 crash, and it still did really well. We made six figures in the first 6 months, and I was really high performing, still at a space that I felt I was really pushing and grinding and just getting really exhausted and overwhelmed. I was moving the needle a little bit in depression, anxiety, but I was still kind of in that space of push, push, push through, because I was still being successful until I finally tanked, honestly, Daryl, where I really couldn't take it anymore. I'm like, I'd rather check out than actually continue in performance in this way. And so I dug even deeper into more the mental emotional space. And that's when I actually got a break, where I started looking in my late 20s and early 30s at high performance in a better way. And I continued to have success in my business. I ultimately sold that and then created another six-figure physical therapy practice, and really taking this holistic approach, this healthier approach to high performance, this healthier approach to staying resilient, something I'm going to be talking about in my TEDx, which I'm really excited about, that's coming up in April. And then now,
Let's
my
go.
last 5 coaching and coaching consulting. So I'm at this space. I have to say this, you guys. I'm at this space where I finally got it. I want you guys to get this, coaching and consulting. And I met Daryl. And then when I started working with him 2 years ago, I was like, I know I wanted to speak, but I didn't realize what I totally got into, with really understanding even more high performance, understanding who I was, understanding what I needed to still heal, understanding that I had to bring my kahunas to stage, so to speak, in a way that was still more vulnerable than I was used to, but do it in a healthy, high performance. So working this far with Daryl, and you're right, the work isn't done, but being a high performer has slowly transitioned into integrating all of me, healing a lot of parts of me, and stepping with courage more times than not that I've probably ever been coached by anyone, by Daryl, to really step in. And every time I have, it's helped me with gigs, it's helped me financially, it's helped me grow as a person, it's helped me in relationships and how I connect with people. I mean, the amount of wins I've had has been unheard. But my success has always been there, but I've learned to do it more in a healthy way and cultivate it, speaking it powerfully, that I cannot.
Yeah.
This is where, you guys, I'm crying, man. This is where I can't really thank Daryl enough, because yes, we're going to talk about some of my other major, more like bigger wins and speaking and gigs and money, but I'm going to tell you, it's just who I've become. It's just this next level of me. And I truly don't believe I would have gotten there without God gently nudging me, like, connect with him, connect with him. I'm like, okay, I hear you. And it's been an
Yeah.
absolute.
Yeah. I want to tie in kind of my next question with that. I saw Melissa shot a question, and she said, can you speak your pain while still healing? So I wanna like address that through the lens of this narrative. So, you've had these successful things, you launched this coaching and consulting business. You're doing great as a coach. You're helping your clients get results, and you're speaking. Like you're speaking on stages, on some good stages too, but you're just not getting paid to do so. And I meet a lot of people that are in that same, kind of vein. Like they're got a coaching business, they're doing some speaking, they're not getting paid to speak, and they're not generating as much revenue as they can from their speaking, whether that be front end through fees and different things like that, or through back end, through courses, through consulting and courses, and or sorry, I said courses, coaching, workshops, that type of thing. And one of the things that happens is people will come in and they think that all I need is the opportunity. I'm just not talking to the right person, right? Like
Right.
I'm just not talking to the people that have the paid stages, not realizing that sometimes it's how you're approaching the relationships that you have that are causing you not to generate more revenue from stages. It's not about the amount of leads you have, it's about the way that you're having these conversations and navigating these environments. And I remember that first couple months was one of our objectives. Like, how do we stop the bleeding? Right? Like, how do we get out of like, hey, I'm investing every time to speak, whether that's travel or my time or both, and I'm not getting the return on investment that I would like. Yeah, I'm making a couple of clients. Yeah, I'm getting some couple of spinoff gigs, but they're still not what I know that I deserve and what on the inside. Not to mention that, publicly, I don't have the influence that I can because of the notoriety, the spreading of the, platform and that type of thing. And so a lot of people stay stuck right there, hard stop. Okay. I don't figure out, no, there's not enough money. It's too competitive. People don't like motivational speakers. Nobody has budget for speakers. Like, hard stop. And if we're honest, that was a lot of you and I's dialogue for the first couple of months. It's like, where's the budget? People just don't have it. Like, they have it, Jennifer.
Amen.
And insert not about the leads, if it's not about people having budgets, if it's not about all these things that I think that need to be in place for me to do my thing, and if it's actually something within myself, well, what is it? And insert Melissa's question. And by the way, let me know if you guys have additional questions around speaking, sharing your story, getting on stages. But insert the problem is that the challenge is not in the leads. The challenge is not in the budgets that people have. The challenge is something within yourself. I'm curious, Jennifer, what was some of those early rocks, some of those things that were in the way of some of the success that you're having right now?
I love this question that she just asked because what Daryl just said was true, and it came through in my sales calls. It came through in my long ASS emails. It came through even in my speaking. And he knows this. And I wanted to like show all the greatness of me, throw up my bio. And I mean on sales calls, on speaking gigs, like just front up. And I was getting like tweets like, are you kidding me? And I was, quote, doing all the work. And not until I started actually looking at why I wasn't getting it. And I'm going to be honest, Melissa, my lack of self-worth. What did I tell you earlier in my story? I had been doing performance for performance sakes, for others, for the accolades, for what they thought I should do. And I was compensating for all my pain. I was compensating for the fact that I was like, I'm actually not really good enough to speak there. I don't have enough knowledge. The lack truly of worth. And it came through a lot of the stories that came up as I started doing this work. And I'm like, why am I getting it? And ironically, that's where the healing happened more so. Like, wow, I have lack of worth when I confront and talk to this person. Where's that coming from? And by going through that process, going through that ability to navigate that emotion and understand where it was coming from, I was able to break free and start being more confident and articulate in sales calls, be more confident and articulate in emails, be more real and authentic on stage, where I took my pain and my story and made it part of the connection that people could actually relate to, along with all my tools and frameworks I had. So for me, my pain really came from lack of self-worth, and my entire life was built on, I realized, just this need to perform for everyone else versus what I wanted to perform for. And speaking, you guys, was probably the first thing that I've ever done. I'm like saying this for the first time, that I've ever done. It's like, this is something I want to do, that I want to master, that I want to high perform in. But the irony is, it took all my other years of wisdom and experiences and pain and pulled it all together to connect it. So unless it really, for me, it was really understanding at its core, I felt I didn't belong in the room. No matter how much I did, no matter how much I knew, my pain, I was just too embarrassed about it. I just couldn't get past it until we navigated all of that. And it took some time. I'm going to be honest, once it took a lot of time. But once I started cracking that open, as I said, sales calls, emails, speaking on stage, I actually started getting bites and people going, wow, I could really relate. And Daryl always says, right, it's not what you say, it's how you make them feel. And when I started doing that across the board in all these interactions I just mentioned, everything started changing. The momentum in my message started taking off, and I was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, so good. So good. Um, the one of the things that's coming up for me right now is just we touched on it earlier about your expression. And a lot of the work that I do with my clients is around helping them to express all of who they are. I say this all the time, but I say the path to becoming a world-class speaker isn't to be like somebody else, but it's to be all of who you are. And so a lot of times when we're starting in the industry, at least for myself, it was all about mimicking people that I saw, like Bishop Jakes and Eric Thomas and Ron Carpenter Jr. and Seth Godin. And I can go on and on and on. And it was all about that. And I got to this place where I was looking to find my own unique voice. And that required me to be vocal, to be public with parts of myself that I wasn't comfortable with, that I still had insecurity around. Dancing on stage was super hard for me. Getting emotional on stage was super hard for me because I was taught that real men and athletes don't show emotion in that way or vulnerability in that way, so on and so forth. So I want to know what some of those things for you, like that. Hey, I have a level of expression. I'm a speaker. Like I can speak. I can give a message, but I'm not being all of myself. I'm being this version of myself that's okay for stages. And again, y'all, this is one of those things where I feel like I didn't see it as a gift that I had, but I start to see it maybe because I compromised so much and I was so many different versions of myself that I can catch people when they're like stifling parts of themselves. That this wasn't majority of people who ever would hear Jennifer speak would never catch this. Like you would just never know. She was great. Oh, great job, amazing. Your energy's awesome, cool. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, something's off. What is that? And so let's talk about what was some of those things that was stifling your expression. And then before you answer, I just want to, because we have listeners, let me tell you why this is important. It's so important because I used to hear this phrase in church all the time that God doesn't anoint counterfeits, he only anoints originals.
Hmm.
And it's so important that you be yourself because the anointing, the people that you're called to reach, the lives that you're going to impact are all connected to your authentic, full expression. They're not connected to who you pretend to be or who you think you need to be in order to be liked, loved, or accepted by other people. So it's important to allow your full, authentic, divine way that you were made to come out so that you connect with the people who just your unique design, your divine design can reach. It's almost like I got this new laptop, and I mean, they've been doing this for a while now, but it has this little fingerprint reader thing, and it made me like get all the edges of the finger so it can know what are all the edges of my fingerprint. It's like when you go on stage, you have the opportunity to get all the edges of your fingerprint, your joy, your dance, your authority, your hardcore beliefs, your motivation, your inspiration, your vulnerability, your tears, your crying, all of it is what makes for a smorgasbord of you, for a master course meal that people can feast on. So let us know, Jennifer, what was that like for you and what places were you not in full expression?
Okay, are you guys feeling his speaking power? I'm getting vibed up. I don't know about the rest of you. I have a speaking gig later today. This is like feed me. So thank you, Daryl.
There you go.
It's so funny that you mentioned your fingerprint. So everyone, I am an identical twin. I'm like 99.9% genetic blueprint of someone else. And I have my own unique blueprint, my own fingerprint, different than my twin sister. And the irony is part of my pain came from comparison to my twin. There's a lot of dynamics around twins, which I'm not going to totally go into today, but I always felt from a very young age less than. I was more emotional than my twin. I was pushing the envelope all the time on change, which drove my family nuts. I was always pushing on dreams. Like I always was kind of shown that I was too much, or I felt, I will just take that back. As a kid, I just felt I was perceiving I was always too much. So from a very young age, even though I wanted to speak, I just started doing this, like be less emotional, Jen, be strong or look strong, what I thought strong was. Say less about yourself, do what other people think you should do, and you'll win this game called life. People will accept you. People will think you're amazing and clap for you. And guess what, you guys? They did until they didn't
Mm,
anymore, or it wasn't enough. And I felt like a walking corpse. I felt like I don't even know who that person is. Like I'd watch videos early on when I was working with Daryl. I'm like, who is that person? I'm like, it's just like she's funny, but it was just like this wall. So when Daryl said that, I literally found myself sometimes being coached by him, like trying to hide, like almost like dodging him. And it's like he could just, I'm like, dang it. And again, you guys, I say that really lovingly, but it wasn't even that I was always, well, I wasn't purposely doing it. I was just like, no, I don't want him to see that. No, because what if he stops liking me? What if he doesn't think I'm good enough? It was such a primal fear, everybody, of being rejected and feeling too much. So to step on stage and him asking me to dance on stage or share like a deep story on stage, I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I had to rewire what it even meant to fully express myself. You guys, I'm 50 years old, and it took me this long in life to actually go back home
mm,
and be like, oh my gosh, there she is. That feels so good. And when I did that, and I did it over and over again, and sometimes I'd pull back and I'd look
mm,
behind and I'd get in the weeds, and Daryl knows that. But once I kept going back in and going back in, it's like magic happened with all this stuff I wanted: the speaking gigs, the paid speaking gigs, the healed relationships with even my family and even with my sister. Like when I would be willing to
mm,
breath and with courage step in with Daryl, or step in on stage with my truth and who I really was, my emotion, my go after it, jump off the cliff, just kind of person, along with my pain. Man alive, it felt so good to be me, Daryl, and the power of
mm.
that. And I feel that, and when you feel it, right? And just the difference that it's made on
Right.
magnetizing the people, places, and opportunities to me has been a continued lesson.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. And then I'll just highlight two specific areas just to celebrate you and things that you moved through. And I know that we talk about the details of your story and how important certain details of your story is as it relates to speaking, because you never know that what that detail might do for somebody. So from a
Yeah.
mechanical standpoint, like details are not wise, right? You like dates are hard for the brain to calculate when you share them from stage, different things like that. But like from a divine alignment, when God's flowing through you, there's certain things that you'll kind of feel led to share around details. And usually in that the sharing of those details is where those divine moments happen. Oh my God. Oh, you had a twin sister? Me too. Oh my God, you were a former athlete? Okay, me too. Two of the things that I wanted to emphasize before we go into to kind of like more of the financial side of things, um, was this part of yourself that was cut off from your athletic success. So
Yeah.
here we have a two-time All-American, y'all. All-American at Division One, and ran with some dogs, some people that are Olympians, were
Yeah.
Olympians.
Yeah.
And so super, super successful. We're not talking about average level success. Yeah, she talked about this long email pitch that she was sending out back when she was getting like no fees and stuff. The two-time All-American wasn't even in there.
Oh.
So this whole long email trying to show you all the places where I'm successful doesn't even have one of the main things that people are attracted to, which is that you're a two-time All-American athlete. And then the second part was when she would speak, it was all like motivational and inspirational, which is great, y'all. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if you can preach, preach, homie. But when you got other skills, when there's more to you than just that, don't let that be the only display, because we're not out here trying to be YouTube highlight reels. Now, I like it when people make clips of me speaking and put the motivational speaking behind it. It makes me ego feels important, but that's not the objective. The objective is for me to impact lives.
Yeah.
And there was this part of you with your practitioner days, because for whatever reason, you probably could elaborate, but you would talk about living in high performance and like doing all these amazing things, but you wouldn't break it down from a practitioner standpoint. And there is so much that you could help with in that regard, because here I was, a guy who was a suicide survivor, talking about mental health on stages. And when I talk about cognitive behavioral therapy or the body keeps the score type of stuff, it's like I'm regurgitating. I'm just like I'm stretching,
Yeah.
right? I'm inspiring, but I'm stretching in terms of how this works. But for you, you actually are breaking it down in ways that people can understand how these emotions are getting trapped in the body, how me investing in my personal wellness affects my productivity and performance. But you weren't sharing those tangible takeaways in that way. You were in your coaching, but not in your speaking. And so those things were stifling your expression, they were stifling your revenue, and they were stifling your impact. I would love for you to talk about those two specific things, and then what did you do to move through, and what was the result of that?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's really interesting. I think part of the reason why I compartmentalized is, as I mentioned, there was a lot of pain in each of those. I was always performing for someone else. Like I was good as I am a healer still. I am still a healer, but I was good at it, but I was getting accolades. As an athlete, I was good at it, I was getting accolades. I was just doing it. I felt like for the wrong reason, for getting my self-worth. So that is one reason why I think I created safety around compartmentalizing that. And also too, when I just could never celebrate the wins. Like when Daryl would say that, I didn't even know how to receive that. I was always on to doing the next win or the next performance to offset that I sucked or that I saw I sucked. So I just this
Ooh, so good. Say that again. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That was so good.
yeah.
Good. Doing the next gig to offset the last one that I didn't feel great about. So rather than unpacking and resolving all the things that led to
Yes.
the internal lack of fulfillment, not external, still getting claps, still getting praises, still making impact, but the internal
Yes.
unfulfillment because I know there's more. And then I just do another gig to try to cover up for that gig. Ah, so
You guys, but it's so true. Like I did that. So it wasn't even, again, go figure, conscious, but I was compartmentalizing because
yeah,
it was safe for me to do that and just go on to keep trying to cover up. And as we all know, that gets freaking exhausting. And I couldn't do it. And
yeah.
what Daryl slowed me down to do is, oh my gosh, I mean, I really had to zoom out, everyone. I mean, it sounds so simple, but I'm like, oh, I could bring the science along with my painful story to the stage, and how powerful would that be? I can bring my healership and my
Mm,
athleticism. Just like I literally was treating it as a separate entity, partly out of safety and partly running from something I felt was really connected to my pain, you guys. But the truth is when I moved through that, when I was willing to pause and move through these areas in my life as an athlete, as a healer, and even as a speaker, through the painful parts, I could actually then be willing to integrate because it felt safe. It felt totally me. It felt I can integrate all this. I can create a powerful
mm,
message now, because now I've not only been able to take all these expertise from all these areas of my life, but not box them up and tie it in a little bow for safety, but actually create pain, connection to movement, connection to my skills. And the magic's been amazing that way. I will say that, Daryl. And I now go through that lens whenever I'm making a speech for of any kind. Of course, I'm wanting to look at connecting with the audience. What do they need? What is the goal for them? But really taking all my parts now, looking at what can I bring as an athlete to these people? How can I bring my healership to these people? How can I bring my inspiration? And yes, my emotionality, my
mm,
desire to see people really live to the full potential, and yes, jump off cliffs where appropriate and live your best life. Like that is who I am. So wrapping around what
yeah.
you totally said about me is just this full expression of me. But I literally had to, well, Daryl knows this. I mean, it was excruciating at times. I'm gonna be honest, you guys. I'm like, there were times I'm like, I'd rather run a marathon today than go through this with Daryl again, because I literally had to
Mm,
break down stories that were coming up that I was like, oh my gosh, there's still so much self-worth here that I don't even want to talk about, that was keeping me from sharing my
mm,
American. I was in severe mental depression, you guys, during those stages. Like it's almost like I just really wanted to push that down because there's so much pain there, even in performance. So I think me navigating these stories with you, Daryl, and finding the power in the pain, that allowed me then to integrate all parts of me and now come with the fun expression Jennifer, the science wisdom healer Jennifer, the athletic Jennifer, like the multiple layers that I am, and really create this powerful speech on the stage that people are not going to forget but actually be transformed by.
Yeah. Love it. So beautiful. So good. And you talked about parts of your story not wanting to go back to it. What I found is that oftentimes the fear for people is that I got to go relive this pain.
Yeah.
But the point of you revisiting those stories isn't to relive your pain, it is to redeem your pain.
Yeah.
And the way that your pain actually turns into power is by you revisiting it and extracting the places where you were hurt, the places where you were wounded, the places where you made mistakes that you regret, and pulling out the wisdom, the lessons, the light from those seasons so that it can transform the pain, the hurt, the trauma into power and triumph. So that is the objective. So I wanted to just go into that. I would love for you just to share as we start to kind of wind down the plane here a little bit. Also, this is your moment if you're just now tuning in, interviewing Jennifer Watson, the epic, the Jennifer Watson, who you can find out about on thejenniferwatson.com. About her journey as a client, going from free to fee, going from no gigs to having a calendar of gigs, et cetera, et cetera, and just all the different things that she had to come through in hopes that you would get out there, share your story with more people, impact the world with your message. And if you're open and interested in having the level of support that Jennifer has been able to have throughout her process, just feel free to type speak in the chat and we can just open up a conversation, see where you're at, see where you're looking to head, and see if this is something that would be great for you to have support of, to have someone in your corner. So I want to talk about financial. Talk about some of the financial wins that you were able to make, and even some of the like more, I guess we can call them external things, the gigs, the clients, those type of things. Share a little bit about that.
No, yeah, that's like I said, that to me has been so the bonus. I mean, that's the irony as everyone, that's what I was looking for, which I got. But what I wasn't expecting is what we've been talking about, which, as Daryl said, that's what makes him different. I'm going to tell you right now, everyone. Yes, and I got to give some shout outs to Daryl. Yes, there is a structure to reach out to people in different environments. Yes, there's ways of navigating your pain to power and making the message to movement. Yes, there's ways to craft a powerful message, but at the end of the day, the biggest thing that Daryl has taught me, he can do all that at 5-star level, is heal so much stuff. So my true essence is coming out to do all the wins financially that I've had. When I first
Mm,
started with Daryl, as he said to me, I was literally like wrangling in speaking gigs like for free, just let me speak for free, like kind of feeling like I was bending over a little bit with all my expertise and having to pay out of pocket for travel. And it was just kind of a mess. It was putting me in a financial debt in many ways, and it made me get out of my real gift of speaking. I just felt so much chronic stress. So when I was first starting, they're like, I want to speak, I want to get paid, I don't know if this is possible, but I feel like it's where God wants me. Fast forward 2 years later, starting in fall of even last year, I had speaking gigs. Half of them were paid, have more paid this year. I've had already 10 speaking gigs into this year. Had my first six-figure year with my coaching consulting practice last year, 2023. Have a huge network that I already had one, but now even catapulted more speaking, coaching, consulting than I ever had before. Have more talks and coachings in the works. I have sales calls now happening almost every week, which before I was lucky if I was getting one a month. I've healed a lot of my relationships with my family. I have continued to create momentum in crafting my message more powerfully. I mean, those are going a little bit more out of the financial wins, but you guys, this is kind of where I've come from. Like, I was not doing well financially. I was struggling at gigs. Now I'm getting gigs left and right. Most of them now are paid. I'm looking for my highest paid speaking gig coming up soon, which I'm excited about. I have a second TEDx coming out. I mean, there's so much there. So, I mean, I just threw up a lot of things, but that's a big deal for me, you guys. I was struggling coaching, consulting, and speaking, and it sucked. I'm going to be honest. It just was really stressful. And to be able to move into this space and be in my essence most of the time because I'm kicking butt and taking names. I mean, it just feels so good to be in that space financially, in that space of my frequency, in that space of just giving a transformation to people, which That's what I am. I'm a speaker and I want to give my message to the world. So thank you, Daryl.
I love it. I love it. So good. Two things I want to highlight. One is a bit of a tangent. So I got to be careful not to go too far off of it. But we learn something from every coach that we ever hire, right? Like everybody that I've ever invested in to coach me, I've taken something away from them, period. Even if I didn't feel like my results were everything that they promised in marketing, I felt like I still took away something from them, and that was what was supposed to happen in that phase of my journey. I have no frustration, anger, shame, unforgiveness, regret, anything like that. So I preface my statement with that. Um, and I know that in this industry, there's so many people who will market an outcome of you having an aligned, abundant coaching, consulting business. But the way that they fulfill on that is a lot of times with compromise,
Yeah.
meaning go out there, go send 1,000 emails a day. Who cares if it's aligned with your expertise? Who cares if it is reflective of your divine essence? Who cares if it's about divine alignment? Just find something that has a good little I help people do this so that they do that statement, and like put it out there into the industry. And I think that that is garbage. I think that as a coach, if you have somebody in your program and you recognize that, man, this isn't like the most divine aligned move for them to make, like call them into alignment, hold them to that standard, be willing to let them go and navigate the different spaces. And when Jennifer came to me, she had a little bit of that going on. I had worked with these coaches, I've been through their programs, and I'm like, man, how did they let her get through the whole thing without addressing these parts? Because these
Yeah.
are, I'm like, we can't, there's certain things I wouldn't even give her certain email templates until she talked about some stuff with her sister. Because it's like we're not about just being successful without being whole and healed. And when we do that, build a business in that way, it's only a matter of time before we explode or implode.
Yeah.
And so, man, I just wanted to highlight that because there's people who are in that situation and they're holding on and they're white knuckling and they're doing Instagram reels and they're doing all of this stuff to try to grow their business, and they're not in full divine alignment. And abundance happens when you're in alignment. I love what my friend David Meltzer says. I just had an opportunity to go to a dinner with him. Well, him and a lot of other high level leaders. And at this dinner, he says, hey, man, if we live in an all loving, all knowing universe where everything's abundant, everything's available for us, but we're not currently experiencing that in our perceived reality, the first question to ask ourselves is, what's in the way? And so that's one of the things that gets in the way for people, that they're not in alignment because of fear, because of what else? What else? We see you. Um, okay, cool. The second thing I wanted to bring up is you talked about this huge network that you have. Okay, y'all. And we're getting close to the end here. So you talked about this huge network, and I wanted to emphasize that because I think that's one of the most underlooked thing when it comes to building a speaking business, and using speaking to grow your business. We think people think about fees, they even think about enrolling clients into
Yeah.
their coaching business. That I don't think that that's paradigm breaking.
Yeah.
But what I feel like they miss out on sometimes is how much more powerful the relationships are when you build it by speaking, when you build it by story. So if I were to run ads and to build an email list with ads,
Yeah.
the quality of client, the connection that I have with those prospects, the level of trust that I have with them is so much smaller
Right.
than when somebody hears them speak. Think about you and people that you just follow because you know their digital
Right.
presence. Oh, I like them. I'll
Right.
tap in. I'll check out their stuff. They become like a book at a library for you. You just kind of pick them off the shelf,
Yeah.
read them, and you put them back. When people hear you speak in person, you're not just a book that comes off a shelf. You're the person who can lead them through the library.
Mm. Amen.
And now with these relationships that you have, it's like I trust this person to lead me, to connect me to the right people, to bring me into their coaching space, to recommend a next step for my coaching or recommend the next step for my personal growth or my professional growth. I trust this person at that level because I just heard them open up in speaking in a way that created that level of trust.
Mm.
It's not even possible through an ad, and it sure ain't possible through any other means. There's nothing that will ever replace being in front of a human, hearing them share real emotion, look you in the eye, let alone get any physical touch. It's
Yeah.
the real deal.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to emphasize that and talk about the importance and the value of those relationships that gets developed from stage because it's one of the most overlooked asset when it comes to building your business in this way.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have any comments on that, but I wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, I do have a couple comments. One thing that, well, there's a lot of things that separate Daryl from other speaker coaches. You guys know he did not pay me to say any of this, but it's really, really true because I've worked with a lot of coaches, and he is very, very high level at what he just said with getting back in your frequency, in your alignment, catching even things you don't catch, blocks. Because a lot of it, there are structural things that I wasn't doing for sure, but a lot of it was like, I'm doing it. And then he's like, ooh, like he would catch that. And that is so vital to help you stay in alignment. I call it staying in your frequency. And as Daryl says, when Jennifer's in her frequency, magic happens, and it's true. So I really want to emphasize that part. The champions, the connections, the community, I would agree 100% with Daryl. There's nothing like being in person to create these champions, these people that actually want you to win, but also absolutely adore you. That is where I've gotten at this point, you guys, in the last year, 80% of my speaking gigs and those that were paid gigs and those that also have connected me to other networks that maybe there would be a coaching opportunity. It's not just finances, but these people really desire you. They want to be around you because they've seen you speak. And the other caveat to that I would give to Daryl is sometimes I'd go to him and I'm like, I don't have any connections. I don't have any leads. I don't have da 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 da. And it's the whole zoom out, Jennifer. You have like 500 connections. I'm like, oh yeah. It's just that was a big piece too, you guys. Not only I agree, AI is only going to take you so far, everyone, my friends. And if you really want to create the speaking you want to create, you got to get in front of people and create the community, but then also zoom out and go, holy junk, like then go deeper on your community, which is something that I didn't always do. And that Daryl would have to have me kind of zoom out, then zoom back in with the people, zoom out, like, look what you got, Jennifer, then zoom in and make some calls, do some connections. So I would agree with you on all those points, but those are the two caveats I'd probably give to what you just said.
So good. So good. Y'all, if you're just tuning in, man, thank you so much. We're at the last lap here. I love what LaShawn Merritt, a client of ours, says. He says the last 100 is everything.
Mm,
And most people um, don't prepare for their last 100 so that when they hit it, they're still trying to decide and push and figure out how they're going to show up. But when you prepare for your last 100, all you got to do is execute.
yeah. Amen.
Um, little nugget from my guy LaShawn. Shout out to you, my dog. Um, so last 100, Jennifer, and you understand that well as a former track and field athlete. Um, what what's on your heart to share? What else do you want to share with people that are watching this? People that have watched your journey, some of your clients, some of your colleagues, some people that mutually know us. They've been watching, even if they haven't been commenting, even if they haven't been vocal, they're watching. And what would your message to them be, and anything else that you just want to share? I'll just kind of give you the floor.
Yeah. Man, a couple things. For one, trust the process. As Daryl said, is the first three-fourths of the lap feels really hard, but trust the process, trust the process, trust the process, because there are times I got in the weeds and slow the bus down. And I wanted to say back in the lane. There were times I looked back. There were times I got out of the boat to trust God, then I got back in. And you guys, it's hard. Man, it is so hard. But if that is one thing I could give to you is, once you make the decision, stay out of the boat, stay in the lane, and get people like Daryl, like me, to help you stay in your lane so you can actually hit the gas pedal the entire time, and go beyond the finish line, go on to things that you literally never even dreamed. There are things that I'm doing now that probably Daryl saw would be happening, but I didn't because I was still kind of in the weeds. But I'd say that to all of you, if it's in your heart and you have this message to give to the world and you know there's something greater inside of you, find someone to help support you that can believe it for you on the times you kind of want to jump out, but keep the goal, your deep why in mind. And when you find yourself wanting to get out of that lane, reach to your help, reach to your coach, reach to the people that believe in you, because that is what's going to make the difference for you to actually get from point A to point B at an accelerated rate and actually make your message this movement that you want to give to the world. So do that, my friends. Stay out of the boat, get out of the weeds, stay in your lane. And when you can't do it, find people like Daryl to help you do that.
Beautiful. Well, man, I don't know why it feels like it's like goodbye. But it's not. I'll see you in 2 minutes.
You guys,
But
to be honest, I can't believe I haven't cried a lot because most every other call with Daryl, I was probably crying at some point. And you guys, I don't mean like in this like always like, oh my gosh, dooms. I mean just these relieving, moving things. I mean I've probably shed a bunch of years off my life, which at my age I will take, my friend. But anyway, the journey has been amazing, Daryl, and Daryl knows that. And you're right, it's not over. We're constantly evolving. We're constantly in each other's world. We're constantly elevating each other. But thank you so much, my friend, for helping me and coming alongside me to jump off the cliff, because I am a big believer. Sometimes you have to take a leap and build your wings on the way down, my friend.
It's so beautiful, man. So super proud of you. I remember, I don't know, 2 years ago, probably like a year and a half, but you had sent me like a couple referrals, and I remember messaging you and being like, "Hey, like, man, I'm all about referrals. Like, send them to your boy." And I was like, "But for me, the best referrals come from when my clients are successful." And I said, if you focus on your success in this program and your growth, uh, man, the testimonials that are come from that is going to be better than you just introducing people that you feel are a good fit right now because you're a good person and like always like to introduce good people that way. And I remember when I said that, I was 100% confident that you would be here, but I also was not sure. It's like, I wasn't sure if you were gonna, on the like quit time, like she might be out for real this time. She might hate me for real this time. I don't know. She might not come back. And you did, and we're here, and everything that I saw in that moment when I said that a couple years ago is this. And now it's so much easier for people to be like, I want what she has. And so I'll just take a moment as a coach and as a spiritual leader uh, to the masses to say this, that if there's something about Jennifer Watson's light, if there's something about the way that she shows up and expresses her message, if there's something about the way that she uses her body, uses her voice, shares her story to impact lives from stage and to grow her business, that piques your interest, that causes you to lean in, that causes you to listen longer than you normally would, there's a reason. It's usually twofold. A, you probably need to work with her. Period. Anybody that makes you feel that way, my mentor David also taught me, feed what feeds you. Okay, feed what feeds you. And then the second thing is, people are who they are because of who they have in their corner. And she was willing to sit in the pocket with me for 2 years to be who she is today. And she's just getting started, y'all. That first year, if I'm being honest with you, we were nowhere near the financial success I knew was available for her or where I would like to be as a coach. But it took so much for her to work through the pain of her stories, the things she was unwilling to do, that she just didn't throttle it financially as much because she was throttling it emotionally and physically and um, relationally. Okay. But now, year two, we were able to turn that throttle and she's in a really healthy place. And y'all, this year, well, I'm going to do another one at the end of this year. and it's going to be drastically different because what we did, because we stayed in alignment, is we built something sustainable, not something that's going to spike, right? And normal businesses have spiked, but not something that's just good while I'm running it, but not sustainable. It has a life of its own now. It had no life,
Yeah.
but you breathing life into it, and now it has a life of its own. So powerful for you. Here to support you. If you want support, whether you're watching this live right now, or you're watching the replay, just type the word "speak" in the chat, and we can open up a conversation about getting your message on more stages in 2024.
Okay.
Jennifer, thank you again for your time today. I know we had some tech issues in the beginning, of course, and I know that we went a little bit longer, but I already knew that was going to happen. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for those who asked questions. Sorry if I missed any questions. And y'all share this, share nuggets from this. Let us know what your biggest takeaways from hearing about Jennifer's journey is. Connect with her, connect with your boy, and go out there and sow seeds of greatness into the world.
Mwah.
Peace.